Hi everyone and welcome back. In this video, I'll show you how to make perfect nanotape bubbles, which have been super viral recently. You can skip to this time if you just want the step-by-step tutorial, or keep on watching to see all the commonly asked questions about this DIY. First of all, what is nanotape? I've seen this on social media for a while, but I didn't know the name, so a big thanks to this viewer who told me. This is a type of thick double-sided tape that sticks to itself but not other things. It's typically used for hanging or organizing small items without damaging the surface. The sticky power from nanotape actually comes from a physical structure inspired by gecko feet, and it's not a chemical adhesive like most tapes. So the next question is whether other types of tape work for these bubbles, and the answer unfortunately is no. As you can see, nanotape has this special stretchiness that other tapes don't have. This is also what lets you inflate it easily and then press the opening closed. So here's my very first attempt, and I'm just replicating what I've seen on viral videos. You wrap the tape around a straw and trim it a bit. Then you heat it with a hairdryer and blow it into a bubble. I was pretty amazed that this worked the very first time, but I had problems closing it up. The bubble deflated pretty quickly, but I did manage to find a solution for this, which I'll show you later in the video. These nano bubbles remind me of bloonies, which have been around for a very long time. I've covered this in an older video, and bloonies are actually quite problematic because they're made of PVA with chemical solvents that have been linked to cancer. They were banned in many countries, but have since returned to the market for some reason. So just to clear things up, bloonies are not the same thing as nanotape bubbles, even though they look similar. In my opinion, nano bubbles are more superior because they're easier to make and they don't break as easily. I can't say for sure how safe these are, but they really don't give off a lot of fumes even when heated. For this next attempt, I tried a paper straw because I was a bit worried about the metal straw getting too hot. However, I realized that paper straws cause the bubble to collapse more easily because it's hard to get an airtight seal. Metal straws conduct heat, so that really helps the base of the bubble to stay shut. Now I decided to time the heating process to find the perfect duration where the tape is soft but the straw isn't too hot. It's best to use a hairdryer with the hotter setting. You can tell when the nanotape is melting because the edges start to look a bit smoother. In the end, I found that 60 seconds seems to be the sweet spot. This bubble inflated perfectly, but I messed up again trying to pull it off the straw. This part really takes a bit of practice, so don't get discouraged if your first few bubbles end up failing. Here you can see how many attempts it took me before I managed to get a single complete bubble. The main problem seems to be that I'm spending too much time detaching the bubble from the straw. This one finally worked, but it did shrink a bit before I could seal it up. I realized that the trick is to pull the bubble off the straw as fast as you can. Once you've blown it up, use one quick motion to snap it off the straw and then press it shut. This should only take 1 or 2 seconds, and it works almost every time. The next problem to solve is the shape of the bubble. In all those viral clips, you often see perfectly round nano bubbles, but most of mine ended up as egg shapes. I'm guessing that this has something to do with the original size of the tape. I tend to leave a longer air pocket, so that results in an oval-looking bubble. This time I'm just experimenting with a shorter shape and a smaller air gap. I find it's easiest to just hold the hairdryer in one place and turn the straw so one area doesn't receive too much heat. Another trick for creating perfectly round bubbles is to let your balloon deflate slightly before closing the opening. This also creates a squishier bubble because the nanotape membrane isn't stretched to full capacity. I managed to do this by accident a few times, and the result here looks exactly like those bubbles from Asian DIY accounts. To decorate them, you can use Sharpies, acrylic paint, or even nail polish. These are super fun to make and they look incredible. The next one I want to try is the glitter bubble. This has also been pretty viral and there seems to be various methods. I've seen some videos making a pocket with the nanotape and then filling it up with glitter. I decided to do it flat on the table like this, and you just have to make sure there's enough raw tape at the top to close everything up. Just like before, I'm trimming the shape a bit and then heating it for 60 seconds. This one turned out so beautiful, and it's probably one of the most aesthetic DIYs I've ever made. Unfortunately, this bubble ended up collapsing quite suddenly because it wasn't fully sealed. Another thing to watch out for is that the pressure inside the bubble can easily push glitter back into your mouth. For this reason, I wouldn't recommend that small children do the glitter technique unless you make sure that the straw is out of their mouth before closing up the bubble. I'm repeating the glitter method again, and this one turned out great. This is such a perfect DIY because it doesn't use a lot of materials and it's relatively foolproof. However, these nanotape bubbles are still fragile, and I noticed that most, if not all of them, will eventually deflate. Here's the smiley face bubble after half an hour, and it looks pretty adorable. It's like an unintentional shrink plastic charm. And one more thing to watch out for is that the bubbles will break if they touch each other. The nature of nanotape is that it sticks really well to itself and not to other things. So if you're making a lot of these, then be careful not to let them touch each other, otherwise one of them will pop. Now let's move on to the final method, which I think works very well. You'll need some white nanotape, at least 30mm, and I've linked this in the comments below. If possible, use a metal straw, which really helps the bottom parts of the bubble to stay melted. Place the straw about 5 to 8mm inside the tape. Too high up makes it difficult to create an air pocket, and too low means you might not get an airtight seal. If you want to add glitter, then do that now, taking care to leave a gap near the end. Now carefully fold the tape around the straw. Using glitter actually makes this step easier because it automatically creates that air pocket. Trim the edges into a round shape and then remove the protective film of the nanotape. I've seen some tutorials do this at the very beginning, but my tape is a bit too thin, so it's easier to leave the film on. Use the hottest setting of a hairdryer for about 60 seconds. Then blow up the bubble and use 2 fingers to snap it off the straw as quickly as you can. If the bubble starts deflating, don't worry and just try to close it up anyway. You might even end up with a rounder shape. Use some markers to add details, and it's done. There's so many possibilities for these because you can change up the glitter or use more nanotape to make things like ears. They're also super satisfying to pop. Bear in mind that most of these will end up deflating on their own, so you don't have to feel too bad about popping them. I've got a lot more nanotape DIYs planned, so please subscribe if you want to see them. I'm Joanna, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye!